Hey, what's going on? My name's Matt, and I'm a hairdresser, just like pretty much anyone else who might be watching this stream. The only difference is that I have my own life that I've led up to this point, so I'm here to share a little bit of that. When I started, I was about 19 years old in 2009, and one of the big things that I drew a lot of inspiration from when I got started was looking at the collections that some of the people I looked up to had created. Now, a collection is something that has a lot of flexibility to the word, but generally something that people who are on artistic teams or even an individual like you and I can get up and create something that consists of looks or products or finished results of things that we have produced, that we've gained inspiration from something. So if you know anything about me, you know I've been with the company Paul Mitchell for a really long time, and with that, Paul Mitchell's son Angus Mitchell, rest in peace, had created several collections. One of those collections that I loved watching when I was in school and early on into my years, and I even go back and watch some of these things nowadays, was one called the Eclipse Collection. This is the second collection that Angus had made with a few of his friends and accomplices, people like Colin Caruso, Lucy Dowdy, Noogie Tai, and DJ Muldoon. The look that I think that I'm going to be creating, I'll talk through why I chose it when we get there. But I wanted to take a minute to share with you some of the information about the collection itself, so you kind of get inside my head as to like what I'm kind of looking to gain, like to share with this, some things that I gained having watched this material. So we'll start with like the collection itself. Cool. So the back of this DVD set says, with 3 new graphic cut and color creations inspired by the sun, and the Angus M team presents a second volume of inspirational salon-ready looks, a creative collaboration featuring Angus Mitchell, DJ Muldoon, Colin Caruso, Lucy Dowdy, and team. The Angus M Volume 2 Eclipse Collection brings innovative color placement and 3 diverse haircuts with one common halo-like concept, a circle parting at the crown of the head. The result is a brand new approach to 3 radiant looks, each customizable for every client's individual needs. The DVD set included. Now, I came upon this one recently. I used to have another copy of it, but I was fortunate enough to, in the National Educator group, uh, ask anyone who had extra copies laying around to just ship them off to me, and a few people did, and so this is what I was able to get a hold of. It includes an inspiration book featuring favorite artists and insights into their inspiration, techniques, and creative processes. 3 new graphic cuts from short to long, highlighting innovative techniques with beautiful wearable results. Some salon-ready color techniques inspired by urban and natural elements, and some easy-to-follow tip cards with step-by-step directions on recreating the Angus M looks in your salon. So, front, back of the case itself, opening it up. This is actually pretty cool. It comes with a little book. Eclipse Collection, Volume 2. Cool flip book. The Muse, the sun, the center of our solar system, forms nature's most powerful circle. Inspired by its luminous circular shape and eclipsing effect, the Angus M team translates the sun's power into versatile cut and color techniques in this new Eclipse collection. Some cool imagery of DJ Angus and Paul. It started with an educational video from the 1970s featuring Angus's late father, industry icon Paul Mitchell, as Angus watched his father section the crown of the hair in a circular shape. Inspiration struck. That one small circle-shaped parting at the top of the model's head eclipsed all other techniques and launched a new collection merging halos of cut and color. So it's pretty cool stuff. When Whenever you get a chance, I'd highly recommend you try to find this on the internet. Things like this are kind of tough to find. It's a collectible. I don't know if I will give this away or not, but we'll see. I'm going to hang on to it in the meantime. Some other things that you'll find in like DVD sets like this, oftentimes, especially with like the Angus M stuff, and oftentimes like some Sassoon creators and whatnot. This one in particular has what's called like tip cards. It's like a bartender's tip card. So there's different pages that are like all binder punch, so you can insert them into what we. I don't know if this is like an industry-wide thing or not, but I know like where I went to school, we call it a bartender's guide, color bartender's guide, and inside it were all these different tip cards, and with each one you'd have a like diagram for a haircut, color placements with like formulations and things like that. So it's pretty cool. For a long time, I went to school in the early mid 2000s. This particular image was like a huge inspiration for me, and you've probably seen renditions of this on a lot of like scene hairstyles, like that kind of stuff. Um, and then this one like super caught my eye because of the pastels and the graffiti color placements, using like a cocktail of different products to produce a different kind of end result. Some things that you would not expect to see in hair color and whatnot. But I thought it was pretty neat to see happen. And then the individual who does the haircut that I'm going to follow along with you guys on with this, I got the awesome opportunity to meet him when I was in school with the design team, and we went down to the Paul Mitchell School in Huntsville and spent the day learning from him and another guy named Manny San Martin. They were doing some awesome haircuts. I believe that there were some similar techniques that were used in this particular shape that were executed that day. And since then, it just kind of lit a fire for me as someone who likes to cut hair. I already knew that whatever I did, I would want to come back and do some sort of education. But it wasn't until that point that I feel like I really had like a trajectory and a path to follow. So super grateful for having been able to be there that day, and proud to say that these guys are people who I consider acquaintances and friends now. As a person in the industry, the longer you're in it, the smaller it seems to get, and the more often you tend to bump elbows with people. So it's not necessarily like a who you know thing, but it's a make sure that if there's a bridge to be built, you never burn it, because you're always going to have friends out there. So anyway, we'll go ahead and get this thing started and put these tip cards away. Okay. So upon loading the DVD up into your computer, in my case, it just drops you straight into this menu. The one that we're looking at doing is going to be this Becca graffiti color placement. It's going to take us straight to the reasoning for how they came up with the haircut and whatnot. And then in this case, they'll actually do the color after the haircut, which is pretty interesting to see. Usually when people are doing creative things like this, a lot of people are used to seeing color placements and then haircuts done to work with those color placements. This one was fun because they did things in the opposite manner, so I enjoyed that. I love that they show the model beforehand. Guy on the left is Angus, guy on the right's DJ.
haircuts based off that sectioning. So within Becca's haircut, I've got a circular section in the crown that we're going to isolate and leave till last. And what I'd like to do first is come through the underneath and make this a lot leaner. So you can see the kind of sectioning through the underneath to make it lean.
Okay, so I'm going to pause right here. And the reason that I'm going to do this, I know it's really, really soon in what we're doing. I want to take a moment to notice the sectioning that's being done here. When you look at the segmenting, a lot of times how people plan out their techniques can be seen kind of foreshadowed and their segmenting particularly. You'll hear me say segment, section, panels, things like that. Think of it like this. A section is what you're going to have within your hands as you're actually cutting hair. A panel is something that sections are going to live in. Segments are those larger areas that the sections and panels are going to be inside of. So with the segmenting you see here, he's got this whole circular shape that's in the crown, and then the fringes sectioned off, parted away, clipped up, and then there's a second triangular kind of arc below that circle in the back that picks up everything between the occipital bone and the crown. So what I'm going to do next is demonstrate how I might make this happen. I wasn't there when they created this parting. I was also in school when this collection was created. So oftentimes, as like educators, when collections are made, if it's a larger company and you're an educator going out to travel to different salons and things like that, you might go to a training where they will teach you how to recreate this themselves. This is going to be me, the viewer, recreating something that I see here in this video. So we'll go ahead and I'm going to step out of the way of my little mannequin here. And I'm going to try to recreate this sectioning so that we can follow along with the haircut. So here we go. All right, so first things first, what I did when I got prepped up today was I took my little mannequin to the shampoo bowl, as it were, otherwise known as a kitchen sink when you're at home, and gave her a light shampoo and condition using some of the BondRx stuff that I've got from Paul Mitchell. I'm going to take a moment to just focus on detangling and then get to some sectioning. It shouldn't take us very long. The mannequin that I'm using is a jade mannequin from Burmax. My preference is generally to find something when I'm exercising a new shape or a new haircut. I like to work on like a medium texture, maybe something that's wavy if possible, so that I can really have like a tighter relationship with how things are going to transpire. If the haircut is intended to be worn on someone with similar hair texture, then I want to try to execute that, and then later on experiment with like other hair textures. If maybe I have like a curly model or a curly doll head, something like that, just to play around with. So I can see where there's going to be a circular panel through here. Then we're going to part away the fringe area. Looks like through the parietal ridge on both sides. I might even take that to say I could come through here and then create a little curvature where the back of the circular panel will be going from parietal ridge and then dipping down. So let's see how that goes. I'm going to work with a couple of chopsticks to hold the hair. Since the hair is a little bit longer, this will just make my day go a little smoother. I've got the microphone pointed at the mannequin head, also at my face, so we got a little bit of ASMR maybe. I don't know. We'll see. Okay, so combing the hair back, I'm going to hold the hair with one hand while I push backwards on the other side to match it. I like using a chopstick when I do something like this, mainly because it's a bit of a quicker process to pick up and drop down as we go. So a little twist and tuck. And then looking at the side view of our video here, looks to come down into a little corner right at the occipital. So we'll just do that on both sides. This is a little bit of a skinnier panel, so I'm going to use a smaller sectioning clip. This is a YS Park M clip. Good little tight clips, good for small panels. There we go. Now we'll divide this top segment here. Another M clip. This one's just yellow. There we are. Now I can take our little circular panel, make sure that's detangled. And up we go. All right, rad. Here we go. We continue the video, little video.
And I have this final section through the front here, which is the fringe area, and I'm going to have that just kind of left alone, and then we'll work that later once it's dry.
All right, sounds great.
So my starting point is going to be through the temple area. Because I want to take the underneath and make it leaner, I'm going to start right here in the front.
Okay, starting
Taking
in the
a
front.
vertical section, working on the outside of the fingers, so I have a bit more control as to where the length's going to be. And just actually taking a little bit of the weight out. As you can see, I left a little sliver at the end.
I really like that, DJ.
It's kind of like how you do it, you kind of section it away. I just kind of just leave it at the end there. Working identical sections, and I'm going to use a very strong over direction. Everything within this panel is going to be brought forward.
Okay, so let's talk about that for just a second. DJ Angus, they both just mentioned different pathways to do something called disconnection. If you're not familiar with disconnection, essentially disconnecting something is the process of taking a section or an amount of hair and allowing it to be left alone until the finished result to be either refined, blended in, or literally just left the way it is. Something that you can come back to, make adjustments, or do anything else you might do with. The purpose of this generally is to either create an illusion of length, an illusion of blending, or the illusion of having more density. In this particular case, it looks like we're trying to create like a leaner structure and then preserve some length towards the neck. So let's see that one more time. Oh no.
This is Becca, absolutely gorgeous.
Something is happening with my software. It's okay, it happens. A bit of software issues. Be back in no time. There we are. All right, cool.
This is Becca, absolutely gorgeous. DJ.
So my starting point is going to be through the temple area.
Okay, back to
'Cause I want
disconnection.
to take the underneath and make it leaner. I'm going to start right here in the front. Taking a vertical section. Working on the outside of the fingers, so I have a bit more.
Okay, so we're pause right here, and the purpose of us pausing at this moment is just to see where this disconnection goes to. So in this context, we're taking a vertical section, we're going to bring it out, and we're going to cut to our second knuckle, and then leave everything else out to be cut later. So here we go. Let's start off with a little bit of water. Scissor-wise, I'm going to go with a shorter blade, something with a little bit more control. All right, here we go. So he's got his vertical section. He's standing behind, which is a little tricky when you're cutting on a section in front of the head, but I imagine there's a couple of reasons for this. One, there's a camera, and you don't want to stand in the way. Second, this gives you the ability to control this shorter hair with your fingertips and then elevate up a little bit more easily. It's more natural for us to elevate with an overhand hand position than it would ever be for us to try to hinge my shoulders up this way. So let's give that a shot. Vertical section, let's set our guide. And work our way down to that second knuckle. See what happens next.
Control as to where the length's going to be, and just actually taking a little bit of the weight out. As you can see, I left a little sliver at the end.
I really like that, DJ.
It's kind
I'm
of
going
like
to let this play through until he gets to the back of the head, or
I just kind
where
of
it
just
makes
leave
sense.
it at the end there. Working identical sections, and I'm going to use a very strong over direction. Everything within this panel is going to be brought forward to the first section.
Okay, so
this is where we're working on condensing the haircut.
Stationary guide.
Whenever I have a stationary guide, it allows me to take larger sections throughout the haircut. So realistically, I could really just comb this entire section forward if I wanted to and cut it to that first guideline. But I like to have just a touch more control, especially with this texture of hair. As I get to the ear, what you'll notice is I'm not actually pulling the hair that is below the ear forward, just what's above the ear.
Okay.
Again, that's all to protect the outline.
So it sounds like we're focusing just in this area
Again,
through
it's
here.
all about working cleanly.
Nothing down here.
And as you can see, the haircut's well sectioned away. It's like a map. It's a road map for me. So really working that consistent tension. If we hit the the toe again, the tension, the over direction, and the elevation.
Okay, I'd say this is a good pause point. We're going to keep on going. So each section he's going through, he's not cutting anything below basically this point. Anything there is getting left out for disconnection. He's got a whole lot of over direction, which does a couple of things for us. It's going to retain a lot of length back here, and it's also going to give a leaner profile around the face, which makes for some fun styling, I imagine. The other thing about this is that in having so much disconnection here, there's no danger of losing any kind of length or density in this weaker area around the hairline that people usually run into. Having all of our over direction pushed all the way towards the face is also going to be super useful to be able to see a consistent guide, because we're condensing everything to that first section. So here we go. We'll push everything to the front. I actually skipped my second section, so let me call myself out for that. Go back into this. Here we go. Next section. I'm gonna laugh so hard if I've cut mine too short. There we go. And then we catch up with him, one more section. Right behind the ear. Anything that's below that point of disconnection, we're not going to worry about including that into our cutting line. We're going to let that be disconnected as well. Okay. Let's see where we go next.
These are the mechanics that create the haircut for me. So those are key areas that I need to focus on throughout every point of the haircut.
Looking really nice, DJ.
Thank you. So what that's achieved for me is a little bit of a round shape through the underneath. It's getting heavier towards the back.
Your fingers, the finger positioning has changed, obviously.
Yeah, I changed it up here so that I don't have to shove the elbow up in the air. Makes it a little bit more trickier when I have to hold the elbow up. And I'm working it quite close to the head shape, so it kind of helps me to work this way. Just checking to see the density of that disconnection that I just left around the perimeter. Again, they're sisters, not twins, but they should have kind of a resemblance to each other.
Okay, so we're looking for some balance.
Consistency and balance.
Very, very much so.
Thanks, Angus.
So the over direction is identical to the previous side. Everything's brought forward onto that first section. I'm cutting a concave layer. It means that I cut the interior shorter and I leave the exterior longer. So it doesn't follow the head shape vertically. What you'll see there is I leave the hair below and behind the ear away. I just bring what's above the ear forward.
And you're bringing all the hair from where, DJ?
All the way from the back towards the front, pulling away from what I want to keep. So
Okay,
by leaving
that very cool visual there. Let's go ahead and start on this side. Take my headphones off so I'm not tethered to the desk. So we've got kind of the reverse situation, but I need to be mindful of like how much, as I'm working with elevation, like what's going to be functional for my body. Now keep in mind I'm left-handed, so some of these things are a little bit weird to adjust for. He's a righty, so he's working on the opposite side of the head at this point. We're going to lower this just to make it a little bit easier. Generally speaking, you want to work about heart level just to be a little bit easier on your shoulders. So we're still in that vertical section kind of space. Comb this out of our way. Just take a look both sides, And I used my second knuckle as a reference when I got this started, so I'm going to stick with that. I'm cutting in hand now, and the main reason for that is just to make sure you can still see what's happening here, but also because this creates a situation where I can control the short hair with my fingertips as we lead into this longer hair down towards my knuckles. So we just continued that same process of over-directing everything all the way to the front. Just going to push this all the way forward, and then up we go. He mentioned, DJ was mentioning a concave layer. A concave layer, as just like what he was defining, is something that doesn't lean into the head shape, kind of goes against it. So like where convex would be like the outer edge of a glasses lens, kind of shaped this way. Concave is going to go against that shape, kind of bows out some. So like the inner edge of your lens. You've got glasses. Continue one more section past the ear and keep that over direction all the way to our first section. A little tip for you that helped me a lot, and this came from a friend of mine named Sarah Kubeski. You kind of treat, when you're elevating and over directing, treat everything like it's a plane going down the runway. Ideally, you want that plane to get all the way down the runway before it lifts off. You don't want to lift off prematurely, otherwise you might not have enough speed. Now in this case, and talk about hair, we want to get our over direction where it needs to be before we begin to elevate. This is going to give us a little bit more control over the overall like horizontal dimension of the haircut. Okay, so let's continue.
Around the outline, that just really gives me some consistency around that area, so I protect the length. You can see again that everything that's above the ear is being brought forward, and what's below the ear is being left there for protection, so that those layers on top of it just blend in. So now you can see the round balance. It's much lighter in the front and gets heavier towards the nape area. So I'm moving into an area now, and this is where I kind of bring
to the
in
back.
our volume 1. This comes from the Neva, and
Neva.
working
Maybe we need to break that one out next
concave
time.
layer in the back area. And the reason why I did this is because everything was over-directed forward, so it left everything at the heaviest point in the center back. So by me placing this over the top of that, it will give the crown some support for later. So using the outside of the fingers, you can see I'm moving the elbow up, and that really just gives me protection towards the edges.
And also, I love the way that you're
Such a great
always
execution.
working with the fingertips from shorter to longer.
Yeah, cutting the way out of the haircut. Some people may tend to work it the opposite way, and I would only say the disadvantage to that is you are working from the length in then. And the whole idea of layering is to remove weight. So I like to actually take it out of the haircut instead of working it into it. And it gives me a little bit more protection of the length if I work to it, not from it. I'm over-directing everything backwards. Again, that's going to give me a little bit of a triangular geometry over the top of that underneath area.
Okay, so that's pretty neat. We have a different kind of disconnection happening, where the panel
my
before
sections,
is being pushed
not
away
too small,
while we
and
work
again,
in
not
this
too
little
big.
triangular
It's
panel.
really all about control. And what determines that is really the density and texture of the client's hair that I'm working on.
So each and every section is actually being pulled to its previous.
Yeah, it's been pulled back away from where it lives. So if you think I have a wall right behind the back of the client, it's like an imaginary flat wall. I'm bringing everything to that wall.
Okay, let's pause here and we go ahead and execute that. I'm sure that we'll probably see something very similar on the other side. First things first, I was a little premature in my sectioning. I need to reorganize just a bit. So we'll get that out of the way. Make sure everything's looking right for this side. Okay. And then we want to start on that concave layer. So I'm going to push this way. Ooh. And here we go. Okay, so tricky little thing to come into, because lefty versus righty. If I want to work the same direction he's going, I would have to stand over here or cut this way. This way makes the most sense to emulate that side if we want to go that way first. So that's what I'm going to do. The other solution could be I would start on the opposite side from him. We did that with the last panel, but this time we'll see what happens when we follow along panel by panel. Okay, so I've got my first section. We go up. And the trick to this one was that we were sliding out as we worked towards that length. A little tricky sometimes, especially if you have like shorter fingers like I have, because there's not a whole lot of sliding room to work with. You gotta keep going back in and recomb. So make sure our over direction is going where we need it. Push this back to our previous section, section 1 in this panel. Got a little aggressive there. Let me remind myself to slide as I go. I may wind up with a little hole in my haircut from that. I'm going to kick myself in the rear for it. That's okay. That's why we practice these things on mannequin heads first. Okay, last section on this side, which I think is where he's at. Over direct and elevate. It's kind of a fun little trick to do. I don't really want to call it a trick. It's a way of doing something to focus on that tilt of the finger angle and follow through. Gives you this fun little lean shape in the back. So if you're into wolf cuts, this one might be the one for you. Let's see what happens next.
Again, it all comes down to what we've been talking about, the tension, the over direction, and the elevation, all those mechanical movements that create all of these techniques and shapes within a haircut. So you can see that hangs over the top of that underneath, but I've taken it shorter on the inside, so it's going to give us some support. Short hair is much stronger than long hair, and gravity doesn't really get a hold of it until it grows out. So for right now, what it's going to do is it's going to give us that added oomph in the crown.
Looks like I'm going to need to stand on the other side for this
So you're
one.
working on the other side here, and I noticed that your body positioning has not changed.
Not changed, so I can stay consistent by taking the weight out of the haircut. Working from the shortest point on the inside being at my fingertips and the longest point being the exterior towards my knuckles. Just gives me a lot more control and consistency within the technique. Again, over directing to the previous and taking the weight out of the haircut.
Love a side view.
You'll notice I'm always constantly as well touching the hair and moving it around. I want to see where it's living and what it's doing once I've cut it. I can't just, cut it, leave it, and expect that it's going to be right.
So we're still
I
over
also want to
directing
make
all the
sure
way to
I
the
do
middle.
that. It's like a visual cross-check, and I want to do it continually throughout the haircut so that I don't get through the entire haircut and then realize on the second section that I actually made a mistake. So there we have that part. We can let the sides down again, so everything kind of just blends together now.
All right.
Moving into the crown area.
Clip away this hair so I'm not accidentally pushing my comb into that too much. Maybe not as organized as he is, but you know, it's not for a test, it's just for fun. Okay, so I've got my vertical section. You know what? Having now poked fun at my own laziness, I can see a benefit of doing a little bit extra work into my segmenting and keep this organized. Maybe that was on purpose so I could say that. Who knows? There we go. Okay, so we'll keep this out of the way. All right, so I've got my vertical section. I'm going to spin this up just to kind of help myself stay organized, keep that separate. A little bit of my previous from the original side. And this time I'm going to stand behind my section, pivot and elevate. And I can see what I did last time. So now I'm going to include a little bit of hair from my current panel. Line that up, get it out of the way. Over direct to the middle. And elevate and pivot. That's fun, man. I can even see like starting a haircut right through here and having something that winds up a little longer in the front with a shorter interior creates a nice like shaggy kind of bob look. That'd be fun. Okay, so we're gonna over direct first. Get everything to the middle. Elevate and pivot. See that previous guide right here? We're just gonna pivot and slide as we go. A little bit of missed hair because I'm human. There we go. This little triangular piece of a section, whatever, we can go ahead and include in everything. Mannequins oftentimes have way less hair than people, so you might be forgiven to take some larger sections. Okay. Okay, so it looks like our next panel is going to be the circular segment up through here. So I think now is a good time to go ahead and let it rip on that. Go ahead. Let's see what DJ and Angus have to say. And I'm going to pop a mint. Oh, little Eclipse. Okay. Headphones on and press play.
And what I wanted to do with the crown area, I wanted to actually work over the top of the rest of the shape. So I'm actually going to pivot from the front of that circle section.
I think this is one of the most exciting parts for me, DJ. When we were watching that video of Paul cutting hair, there was actually a moment right here that you're about to get into that mimics Paul's hands.
Definitely. I took a huge influence from watching Paul's work. I had the great opportunity to actually see some footage of Paul cutting hair in the 60s and 70s. And if you're looking for inspiration, it's a very, very great place to get it from.
So this is it right here.
Yep.
You gave me goosebumps when you did this, when I watched you doing this video.
That's cool. So what I'm doing here is I'm working in a very extreme
That's
round shape.
That's a
I'm
very
taking
sweet thing to be
horizontal
able to
section
say.
along the top and cutting from short to long. So you can see that that shortest length there at the front is going to hang over the fringe area, which in turn is going to kind of set it up for Colin with his color technique.
Okay. So that's some more disconnection
I
happening.
think that shortness, it just makes the shape a lot leaner because it allows it to kind of jump and spring around.
A lot more versatility and movement on top of that crown area, huh?
Exactly. I think we keep hitting that point. It's not just one style. It's about varying and being able to, give your client the freedom of wearing something different every day. I think haircuts are a fashion accessory. They're there to complement somebody's look. And so that's why we kind of play around with some of these different techniques and disconnections, is so that we can create freedoms within a haircut and allow it to be moved around into different forms. So what I'm doing is I'm pivoting off that first section in the center.
Okay.
And I'm over directing everything into that first section in the center.
So the sections rotate, kind of like round layers, if you're familiar with Paul Mitchell, the cutting system, or like
and just
how
like
we do the
underneath,
crown of
I was
triangular
working
layers.
from short to long, I'm doing the same thing here.
A little wagon wheel
I find
party.
you have much more control if you do it like this, work from the fingertips being shorter and the knuckles being longer.
Because obviously, as you start to over-direct and push further with the fingertips down, you're really ensuring to keep that length the longest as it works back.
Yep.
Okay, so we're back
And with
to
that longer
stationary
length at the
guide.
back, you can see what's going to happen is that's going to hang over that back area, and the shorter concave layer through the underneath is going to give the crown area a little bit more jump and support. So again, it's as you can see, it's all about working cleanly with your sections. I'm just breaking this section in half because I want to work a little bit more smarter and not harder here. If I try and put all that hair into my fingers, chances are I'm not going to get a clean line. So to efficiently control the hair, I break it through the center there. And that kind of ties in with Angus's rule of not going past the knuckle. So just trying to really stay consistent with the tension. Tension is the degree of stress that you place on the hair, so it really is all about being consistent. So when you do cross-check, you see those clean geometric lines throughout the haircut. So I'm going to do the same thing on the other side now, Angus, identically the same. Not going to switch positions, I'm going to stay exactly the same place.
Okay, so there's
That's a
not
key
really
point.
any
The only way that you'd be
asymmetry
able to
happening in
keep
the haircuts.
your
They're
fingertips
balanced.
down and working up, it would be to stay in the same position. So
It's be pretty easy to
Again,
duplicate.
don't be afraid to comb the hair.
Super clean
It's all
cutting
about
line.
getting
Look at
in
that.
control. All this commitment to being clean and consistent throughout the haircut, it really sets you up for a very, successful haircut. And what I mean by that is, yes, our clients are going to look great when they leave because they're in good hands, and we have great products and great blow drying skills and that. But really what we're testing here is a technical skill. Let's see what the client looks like when she comes back. Let's see if this technique worked that we created and that. And the more I can be consistent throughout the haircut, the chances are the style will have more longevity.
it's that saying, DJ, let's fall back in love with hair again.
Exactly. Let's get into it again as far as breaking it down and understanding the whats, the whys, and the hows. Just makes us more confident hairdressers. So you can see now that real stretch, so I can keep the length there in the back of the crown. And that's really important, I feel, because then we keep the elevation consistent. And this is what we've been talking about is, generally what can tend to happen is we comb the hair up, we lock our fingers and get the tension, and then we drop the elbow, bring it down so we can cut the hair a little bit easier on ourselves. But there's a reason why I'm elevating it that high, and that's because I'm layering the haircut. Anytime if I drop the elevation, it's going to turn into graduation. So
Yep.
I want to stay extremely consistent with this.
Pretty much the higher you lift it, the lighter it gets.
That's really important.
Lower, the heavier.
Most hairdressers, they tend to do that quite a bit. They lift the hair, they find their guide, and then they drop it down.
I think it all turns back to that. We always tend to go with what's more comfortable to us. And again, haircutting is something you kind of have to learn the positions and the movements to officially, successfully make the haircut.
Tricky spot to be in when you got this pre-lightened hair, trying
So
to
you can
cut
see I'm
layers
coming
into it,
everything
elevating.
into the center there.
Easy to see some tangles happen.
There we go.
Okay, let's
So now the
pause.
fringe area.
All right, so we're at this circular panel, this segment, and I want to make sure that I am working on evenly moisturized hair, plenty of water to work with here, so everything is consistently wet. That's something I like to do throughout the haircut. The first section was more or less, I'm not going to say vertical, horizontal, whatever. It ran from front to back. So we're going to create the same thing there. And for all intents and purposes, I think what makes the most sense for me being left-handed would be for me to hit this side first, and then I'll come back and do the other one. Rather than pushing first, I want to pull first, just so I have more control on the get-go with a newer technique, right? Or a less practiced methodology. Okay, so I have my first section ready to pick that back up. Scissors in hand. And so with this being the first section, I first want to make sure, my over direction doesn't have to, I'm not going one way or the other. I want to get control of where we're pulling this hair in relation to like this kind of an axis, right? That way I can really easily determine where our shortest length here is going to be to our longest length as we tilt backwards. So I'm pulling this towards the face just to kind of see like what kind of length range it's going to land in. I kind of like that bridge of the nose kind of area. So I'll work with that. I'm going to cut to my second knuckle. And the reason I'm going to pause here is that I want to recomb, elevate again, because I'm going to have a lot more tension with these knuckles here than I ever will with these knuckles in the back. If you ever want to test that out, have a little tug of war with a buddy and hold a piece of rope between these two knuckles, and it'll be a lot harder for someone to pull that out of your hand than it will be if you put it between these two knuckles. So just continuing to work my way uphill. There we go. Next section is going to pivot off of this one, and I'm going to over direct it to my original. I'm looking for that same cutting line. Something that my mentor when I was in school used to tell me was it's good to have your elbows kind of mirror that cutting line if you want to ensure a little bit more accuracy. little bit more consistency with your finger angle, your elevation. If your elbows are up, you're less likely to start pulling the hair down. But see, when I drop my elbows, this is my own, my personal experience. When I drop my elbows, I find I start to tilt back down this way some naturally. That's not to say it's impossible to keep my finger angle right and have my elbow down, but I might, like, what am I doing? I'm just like, there's a lot of weight here to pull this here, whereas I could just use my shoulder and then we're off to the races. Got some friends who disagree with me on that. That's okay. There's more than one way to Hollywood, whatever, I don't know. Whatever the saying is. We're not over here skinning cats. So just work to my second knuckle, then recomb. Last section on this side. Going up on a Tuesday. And now we're going to work the other way. So the trick here, I don't want to just like turn my back to you, just to know that the sectioning pattern is going to be it's going to be identical to what we did through here. I'm just going to move it to this side, right? The difference is that instead of pulling to me, which is way more natural, I've got to push that hair to the guide. I'm going to get this out of my way. Get my first section on the other side and push. Once I've pushed that hair where I need it to be, and I've got my hand in place, then I'm going to elevate. Here's my cutting line. I went way past my second knuckle, so let me just double check that. Yep, and that's right. It's a little fuzzy. Fill in a little bit more from this side. Over direct. And elevate. A little bit of some hair I didn't want to have. There we go. And our last section on going up. Okay, so we're done with the panel. I'm going to go ahead and release the back. Start to kind of get a feel for how this is all beginning to come together. Barring the fringe. And this has got some of those like shaggy kind of wolf cut vibes that people are kind of into right now. That's fun. That's cool. I like where we're headed. A lot of texture. Be a really fun wash and wear kind of style if you've got wavy hair. I could see this on some curls too. Probably not 4C. 4C might make this look a little boxy so far. I'm down to try that sometime. Okay, let's get back to the video and see what happens.
Down and through, you can see everything's hanging over that now. And now we'll blow dry it.
Oh,
so here's Manny
one
again.
sec.
You just applied a bit of gloss drop.
So I got a little pause here. Fairly Raven asked a question and said, are we going more wagon wheel or more perfect vertical sections? So just to answer, I'm assuming you're asking kind of through this top area here. When we got there, the first section was, you could call it vertical. It ran from the apex kind of back towards the crown. But after that, we pivoted off of it. So it kind of got more of that wagon wheel kind of concept. But each one was over directed to the original and then elevated. So think of like a combination between the kind of over direction you might get out of like cutting a flat layer, just like a concave layer, and some of the sectioning, if you're familiar with how you might cut, say, like triangular layers, uh, the way it is in the cutting system. Hope that answered your question.
And a little super skinny serum, make the cocktail.
Oh, we're just straight into it. We're not even cutting the fringe yet.
Roots to ends.
We just got straight
I
to
think
blow
that's
dry.
a really good cocktail when you're working with hair that's been processed.
Yeah, obviously we've used some dual purpose lightener here, and we want to really kind of shrink the cuticle down again, and that's what that super skinny's for.
Got
And
Manny
that
San
cross
Martin on the
too.
blow dry.
Really give it that definition between each layer. And, it's very important that we get the real proper finish so that I can come in there and visually work the haircut.
Okay, so we're getting everything super smooth, and then we're going to go in and the refinement
So he's
phase,
working a leafing technique.
and then pop in that fringe.
And that really just kind of stretches the roots a little bit, gets a little straightness in there. Consistency is your key. Making sure that the direction of the blow dryer is working from roots to ends so that you do close the cuticle.
Oh, here we go with a bit of the smoothing iron.
So before that continues, I just want to bring your attention to one key point here, is that if you notice, they got the hair straight with the blow dryer. Okay? The hair was straight through the process of drying the hair. That's really what like a style and finish is all about. Popping in here with a smoothing iron afterwards, that's not meant to straighten the hair, that's meant to polish the hair. And you'll see that as they go through, they're not necessarily straightening the hair here. They're putting a polish, they're putting compression, they're putting shine into it, and using the smoothing iron to do what smoothing is. A lot of people hear smoothing and they think straighten, and that's not really what it's all about. A smoothing iron is not meant to straighten the hair. It's meant to polish the hair, to create smoothness and reduce frizz and expansion. So I don't know. I'll hop right off my soapbox here, and we'll see how the rest of this goes.
Following that comb through. Consistency is key again. The whole premise of when you're doing this, especially when you're going to work it dry afterwards, is it has to be in a perfect state, a very consistent state. So whatever I go in there and cut, if Becca then goes home and washes her own hair and blow dries it herself, it's still going to be consistent to what I did. And you can see those shorter layers now on the inside hanging over that perimeter.
It's really starting to look great, DJ.
Model kind of looks like Emma Stone right now.
So this is my favorite part of the haircut. This is where I really kind of just put the signature in the corner of the painting, if you will. It's really personalizing it and making it mine. Coming through and just pointing through those edges through that circular section so that we have a little, softness when it falls down on everything else, because those are the top layers. So if they're not cut softer, they're going to come over the underneath and it's going to look lumpy and strong and that. So this is really adding that softness to it.
Primarily when it's shorter on top and it's falling down heavy, you will actually really see the heaviness of the corners that you've actually created.
Exactly, it's very visual. That's what you're going to see. And also notice when I come through and do this freehand work, I don't take vertical sections. I take more of a horizontal curved perimeter section, for example. And what that does is it allows me to...
Okay, so before we continue any more of this refinement part of this haircut, I want to spend some time on getting the style and finish taken care of, like getting the hair prepped for this part. So what I'm going to do here is get my blow dryer and some brushes ready. We're going to work some product in, and we'll go ahead and make this part of the show happen. I'm a big fan of using a blow dryer without a concentrator when I blow dry. The reason that I like to do that is that I like a more gentle airflow, so that I can rely more so on like what my brush is doing. This is going to give me a little bit more control over my finished result, and it's also going to help me get the hair a little bit more quickly dried and finished. So I'm gonna take my headphones off. Take me like 5 seconds to get my dryer plugged in and ready to go, and we'll get the show on the road. So product-wise, what I'm going to work with is just going to be some fast form. I'm going to play it simple. I like fast form in this case. On the model, Manny was using super skinny serum. I'm going to see if I can't get a similar feel product-wise and finish-wise to super skinny serum by just using a couple extra pumps of fast form, and we'll see how that finishes out. So I'm going to focus first on the hair that's kind of around the face and the lengths. Once I feel like I've got pretty decent saturation as far as that goes, I'm going to come in through underneath and start working my hands and the product through all this hair that's still got a little bit of moisture in it. Lastly, hitting the hair that's a little bit drier, because I don't want that to accidentally soak up too much product at once. Best way to go about this is to treat the hair like it's a towel and you're trying to get everything off of your hands. And then maybe grab an extra towel. Okay, blow dryer wise, what I'm going to use today is a Neuro Grip. I'm going to use this mostly because this is the blow dryer I travel with. When I travel with it, the reason I choose it is because it's compact. It doesn't have a handle on it, so I'm able to fit it into a suitcase or into a messenger bag or whatever else I'm traveling with bag-wise, and it doesn't take up too much room. It leaves me a little bit more real estate for things such as clippers, combs, scissors, etc. Brush-wise, I'm a big fan of a brush that is a little bit softer on the finish. So this is a YS Park Beetle brush. You can find these on YS Park's website. You can also find this kind of stuff through Hairbrained. Hairbrained has an online store. I think if I'm not mistaken, I believe the URL is hb.pro or hairbrained.pro, and that's where you can find things like clips and combs and scissors and razors and blades and brushes and all sorts of other things, as well as a lot of online education. So super into that. I really miss my Hairbrained people. It's been a while since I've been kind of active in the community, so I'm excited to get things kicked off with something like this. I'm going to do some blow drying. I'll take some breaks as I go and kind of talk about what I'm doing. But the gist of this is going to be, if you're not familiar with Paul Mitchell lingo, you might call this a wrap dry technique. In Paul Mitchell lingo, think of this as a combination between a flat wrap pre-dry and a directional pre-dry, which I'll then go in and do some leafing and beveling. Okay. So I've gone all the way around the head at this point. I'm going to go back the other direction. The purpose of that is so that I can get good compression around the temples and also have more of like a balanced movement overall. So just feeling, see if there's any moisture content left in the hair. Sometimes I like to use the back of my hand for this because the front of or the palm of my hand has been used to control the brush, so it might feel a little bit differently with things just because of all the heat and air that's been running across it. You might be confused to feel like, oh, is it cold or is it dry? Or is it wet? So I think we're good. We're ready for the next part here. I'm going to go ahead and break out my smoothing iron. While that's going on, I'll let you guys watch some more of this refinement, and we'll continue.
Visually work the entire panel. If I work vertically, I only touch one area and then I've got to match all the other areas to it. So I could actually ruin my haircut if I did it that way, if I wasn't thinking about it. So just add in some space in between there.
What I love too is that you're not getting carried away.
No, it's a refining technique. It's a finishing technique. It's not where I see mistakes in the haircut and go, oh, I need to get rid of that. And it's really just looking at the haircut. It's a visual way of working it. You've done your technical. You've built the house. Now I'm decorating the house, if you will.
I also like this, just that little bend of the knuckle that you do when you're lifting the hair there as well. Putting the space in the hair when you're point cutting.
Yeah, just a little trick makes it a bit easier for me. And this is something I've been playing around with too, is, you know, we want to break the texture a little bit. And instead of getting in there and just chopping and chipping away, it's nice to just twist the hair. Obviously, when you twist it, you're getting a slight inconsistency.
Okay, we're going to come back to that in just a second. In the meantime, just want to chat about what I'm doing here with the iron work, and I'll get caught up with his refinement. So the gist of what we're doing here, don't judge me for putting my clip on my shirt. It's for a video, not a salon. I'm not gonna work in segments at this moment. I'm gonna primarily focus on working in just sections. I'm gonna do a little side part here, create a side part for the main purpose of not putting too much movement or compression in any one key area. So I don't want to change how I've chosen the hair to move at this point. So I've got one clip to gently hold the hair in place on one side, and I've got another clip that I'm going to use as I work around the head shape. I'm a big fan of working with diagonal back sections when I do this. So that's what I'm going to do here. I like it because it lays down a little bit more naturally. It's easier to work around the head, and you get through a little bit more geography a little bit faster. Raise it up. There we go. Temperature wise, it's at 360 degrees. This is the Neuro Halo. I like to use it because it's got titanium plates. I'm a big fan of titanium irons for the purpose of transferring heat a little bit more quickly and not having to pass through the same area over and over again. So in our context here, I want you to take note of the fact, like, we're working with slightly longer hair on a mannequin. So how do I make this work for me? The key is when I get to the mids and ends to the hair, I slow down my movement just a little bit for the purpose of compressing these more so. I've spent a lot of time in the blow dry phase just getting the base and mids dry and smooth, right? So once you get to this point, it's all about polish and completion. It's not necessarily straightening things down, but if you rush through each section when you get to lengths like this, you wind up having everything expand, which is a good tip, especially if you're someone who's going to be doing like a lot of silk presses or blow dry styles in a day or anything like that, where you've got wavy or curly hair you've got to manage. One of the biggest things that I think that people could do to avoid like having unpleased guests at the end of the day is taking your time when you get to the ends when it comes to your iron work. And follow the shape of the head. I'm not bending the hair under. I'm just following the natural shape of the head. A lot of irons these days go up to like 450 degrees Fahrenheit. This one does too. A lot of people will sometimes ask me why I choose not to work with my temperature up that high. And it mostly comes down to the burning temperature of hair. 451 degrees. If you go that close, you're way, way, way more in danger of risking the possibility that hair is going to get some sort of heat damage. I'm kind of equal parts thankful and annoyed by this ceiling fan I've got here because it's keeping my temperature regulated, but it's also making the hair kind of do this cast off situation. You'll notice, even though I'm not doing like multiple passes in a section, I will get down to about halfway through a section of hair with the iron, and then I'll pop back in and go mids to ends. The purpose of that is that when you are coming through with your iron, let's take this section as an example. I have the hair elevated right now, and I'm going to work on compressing to this point. Now, when I get to this point, I want to reset the hair, and I can see a little bit of detangling taking place. and I'll replace my iron right behind that so that I can get that hair more evenly compressed, which creates a nice little shape that hugs the head better. Would everyone wear their hair like straight like this? No. Some people like it, some people it's not for them. But in the context of a haircut, if I know that there's a possibility that someone could wear their hair either way, then I like the opportunity to take time to spend some time with polish, because this gets me something that's going to look nice and pristine whenever they do. And when they decide to wear it curly or wavy, then we know for a fact it'll look good then as well. Because at the very least, we've given them a strong foundation for the rest of what their hair is going to be doing. I thought it would be fun to do this particular shape for a couple of reasons. One reason is that in a week from today, actually, Raven and I will be spending some time as guest artists for a school in California, and this was it just felt like the right haircut to do, going into a little guest artist session, having a little pre-done, something a little fun. We can talk to them about the value of like having a social media presence, even though there's like maybe 1 or 2 people on this one. I think it's better to be doing something than not, right? So that's kind of what this one's all about. I'm going to take some time, experience some nostalgia, get back into some inspirational things, go back to my roots, whatever you want to say. Okay, now that I've taken my little diagonal sections all the way to this corner of the hairline, I'm going to start back on the other side. Almost dropped my clip. There we go. Starting to include a little bit of fringe here. Don't want to force the hair any one direction. I'm just going to allow this to fall straight down, because if I remember correctly, we're going to wind up with a straight across fringe here. And just place that hair where you want it to live. You can see a lot of people when they're doing this, they'll like bend the hair under and whatnot. You just overwork the hair, which is totally unnecessary. You just follow that natural head shape. Let it round off slightly. Easy stuff. Let it be easy. Make it complicated, it'll be complicated. A little foldy technique, I'm going to show you that in a second. Probably already know how to do it, but I want to just tell you why I did it. Remember how we were saying earlier that blow drying is the way you want to straighten hair, not the iron work. Well, when you are in the process of putting all this heat on the hair and creating a polish, if you make the mistake of winding everything up and putting a clip in it, you can wind up creating more work than you really need to. So what I like to do is, once I've dropped down my next section, rather than creating a nice tight little knot, I'll take my sectioning clip, look at the bottom of whatever segment I'm on, and I'll press my clip in and then fold it up from there. And that's a nice way to control the hair without creating any like lifts and dents and stuff like that. I've made it to this little crown area right here. I'm going to drop all that down, kind of let it fall where it does naturally. And then instead of using my comb to create any particular section, I'm going to lift the hair where I see it, kind of creating a little bit of extra fuzz. And then use that as my way to identify what should be polished a little further. This guy right here. Some people would probably get a little mad at me for combing through the hair directly after I've ironed it. But that's okay. You're allowed to be angry on the internet. Okay. Good little example of that little dent right here that I've created because I've had this clip in here for so long. I'm going to use the clip to go across the fringe, fold this back, and clip it. Sorry, that was super blurry. I'll do that again in a minute. Give the hair a good comb through. Place that hair where you want it to go. So we'll create a little parting with our clip, fold, and clip. last section coming up. Whatever's happening right there. Okay, cool. Now I can turn my iron off and we'll get back to some refinement.
Just looking at the haircut, it's a visual way of working it. You've done your technical, you've built the house. Now I'm decorating the house, if you will.
I also like this, just that little bend of the knuckle that you do when you're lifting the hair there as well. Putting the space in the hair when you're point cutting.
Yeah, just a little trick makes it a bit easier for me. And this is something I've been playing around with too, is, you know, we want to break the texture a little bit. And instead of getting in there and just chopping and chipping away, it's nice to just twist the hair. Obviously, when you twist it, you're getting a slight inconsistent, if you will, layer with the hair because we're removing weight, obviously. So that kind of just changed the texture a little bit in the crown so that we can get a little bit more pop and dimension to that area. It's almost consistently inconsistent.
Consistently inconsistent.
It's a twist and tease.
It's a twist and tease. I'm using the V part of the scissor and really just allowing the sharpness of the blades to really kind of just slice the hair a little bit. And I'm not closing the scissor. If I close the scissor, then we lose the length. And now what I want to do is just really kind of make this outline a little bit more broken up, definitely softer, so that when it moves.
All right, so we're going to pause for just a second so that I can catch up with the refinement part, and then we'll let him play again when he gets to the ends. I'm going to switch my scissors for some of the things that DJ was doing there. I've been using these smaller straight-bladed beaks from Mizutani, which are probably my favorite scissors I own. I'm going to switch to the Paul Mitchell Pro Scissor. It's a 6.0 scissor. The reason that I want to use this, nothing to do with brand and everything to do with the edge. I want something that has a little bit more of a convex edge to it, where the cutting action that you get when you're working with these Mizutanis is more of like, think like slap chop, like it's all coming down to cut at the exact same time. Whereas these scissors, now it's subtle. It's not as much as some that you might see like from scissor brands that like to visit your schools and stuff. These will be a little bit more of like a gradual close and cut rather than every part of the edge hitting at the exact same time. So I want to be able to do that so I can do more of like some scaling and slide cutting and that little Christmas tree technique that you saw him doing a moment ago. So let's see how that goes. I'm going to do some of my own refinement here. I'm looking at areas where I see weight kind of through this zone where our overhanging disconnections lived. And I'm going to take a horizontal section through where this circular panel was, and I'm going to elevate that and do some deeper point cutting. The key here is to close on your way out. If I close on my way in, then I'm going to cut myself. Okay? So close on your way away from your hands. I'm doing a little bit of a drag out while I point cut, just so I can continue to soften the ends just a little bit further. And I feel like that did a great job of dissipating the weight line that I saw. So we're going to continue, look around the head shape. Similar thing on the opposite side of the crown here, which makes sense because this is a haircut that's more or less symmetrical. Just bring this up, elevate, and then we'll start our point cutting. I don't really like this extra length right here, so I'm going to go ahead and etch that off. And then we'll get into some point cutting. Now, the angle at which you go into your point cutting is going to make a big difference as to what kind of finish you make. If I go in vertically, like matching the direction the hair is growing or moving out of my hand, it's going to be softer. But if I come in and create more of an angle, that might be a little bit more of an aggressive finish. Just depends on what you want to see happen. Either one was okay in this context. Okay, so we're living in the front of the head shape now. I don't want to do any like fringe work just yet, but I do want to go ahead and do some point cutting just right across this frontal area. And let that fall right back down. And as for the little Christmas tree, this little choppy cut, we're going to take a section off the side of the crown, kind of towards the parietal ridge. I'm not going to do all that much of this. This tends to make people get a little crazy with hair cutting. But I just want to show you a little bit more about what's happening here. So the hair is being twisted. We're using the V at any point in time of where the scissors are closed to close in on where this is. And there's a little bit of a dragging effect. You see how this kind of teases the hair down some, closes, so a couple of hairs get cut at the same time. Some people will try to make you think like this is doing something scary to the cuticle. It's not. It isn't. If your hair is in a state where that's going to do something crazy to your cuticle, then you need to do more things to your cuticle than get a haircut. Pick this up, do a little twist around. At this point, you could even come up and do it the opposite way. So we could come out this way, or even point cut, or either one's fine. It's just fun, right? We got to find those little moments that we have fun with it and create a little bit of a fun experience for our guests. It does create a little bit of invisible inconsistency, which takes out some weight, and I think that's a super useful thing to be able to do. And if it makes you feel like you're having a creative time by doing it, then more power to you. All right, back to the video. Looks like we're doing some slide cutting.
Line. I find that would take away from the interior if we really went into this haircut and put a really thick, solid outline on it.
Okay, so we're not going to cut a straight line into the outline. We want to use that slide cutting.
So there you go. You're just using the tips of the scissors there.
Mm-hmm.
Love that.
So the fringe area, the famous fringe area. First, I just kind of playing with the length here. I like to kind of get a gauge of what the hair's going to do before I take it down to the length I want. I want to see if it's going to jump. I want to see if it's going to lay down. So I put it in the fingers first, and now I'm going to cut it in the comb. So the comb really just adds a level of forgiveness, and it's just using elevation. So it kind of bevels the edge a little bit. Still coming in there and cutting a strong line, but I still have that softness because I used an elevation. And I'm looking for a kind of a symmetry within this fringe. I don't want it to be symmetrically even on the face. I like it to just kind of open a little window.
This is what really got me really excited, because that's how I
Love
believe
that
you
fringe.
make things modern. You make things happen this way.
So I'm using a little bit of the gloss drops now, really to define each of those panels and those layers within the haircut, and just give it that added shine.
Gonna pause where we're at and catch up. Okay. So right now I'm at that point where he was working on the perimeter, coming through and using a slow closing of my scissors while I work my way down to create a visual match of the outline. So I'm not trying to get in here and be super precise and cut straight lines into it. I want it to have a little bit more, seems like a fringy little skirt, right? Let's see where I want to have some density taken out. The key here is not to just drag through it, as to close on your way down. Otherwise, it's going to be an uncomfortable experience for the person in the chair. Keep on going on the other side here. Make sure that I'm not tilted down too far. So have some balance out of it. I love stuff like this because it's fun, right? We get people who like to call themselves cutting specialists, and I'm going to group myself into that as well. We get a lot of like creative satisfaction out of creating a haircut that has precision and accuracy and those crispy clean lines, and you see it in some like super proud barbershops and whatnot, and a lot of like those high-end salons. But when I got my start, I was not about that. I will tell you, like I was a regular little Robert Cromains wannabe coming out of school, and to be completely honest, like I love that thought process because it's not necessarily, to me, like my own personal growth. It's not about being a master cutter or a master colorist or a master stylist or anything like that. I don't necessarily want to be a master anything with like any part of the process except for I want to increase my mastery of it, if that makes sense. And I think that if there's anything that I'm really into, it's increasing my understanding and proficiency with the comb first and foremost, because literally everything starts there. Understanding hair growth and what you do with a comb is paramount to everything else. So we're going to do some fringe work. First thing that DJ did here was cut with an in-hand hand position with a little bit of elevation. I love the little arc shape that he had created. I'm going to see if I can't emulate something like that. I'm going to start off kind of in the lip region of the mannequin. And then after I have gone into that, I think I'll create some separation here. A little bit of division. And then we'll pick this hair up. Place it in my comb. Almost. I just want to see what this will create for us. Okay, that's fun. I like it. A little bit of texture here. Working with that overhang we had. I'm just elevating the hair, kind of pinching it up and point cutting at the ends, just to create a little bit of a scattered effect. I like how it kind of creates this little duster at the ends of the fringe. That's a fun little experiment. Okay, let's see where we go.
Just moving around the hair. You can see how those layers are now popping, so you can get the dimension and the shape off it. Coming in using a little bit of the worktop, great three-dimensional spray, and really kind of just, it's a very good working spray.
Oh, DJ, that's magic.
Thank you very much, sir.
All right, DJ, fantastic haircut, man. Colin, I'm really excited about that edgy street chic that you've been doing these days. So really kind of quickly, give us a little download about this new color technique that you've been playing with.
Absolutely.
Oh,
Basically,
yes,
being
hang
located
on.
just
Before
outside
we
New York
do
City,
this-
I get a lot of my inspiration from the
Oh, dude, this color is so fun. All right, before we get to that, I've got spray wax. He was using Worked Up. I'm a big fan of spray wax over Worked Up, just for my own fun. And I like it because it's going to help the hair to kind of grab onto itself. So I'm going to use these little micro bursts first, like over the hair and then into the hair. So a couple little gentle little sprays, and then we'll do that on both sides. Big fan of spray wax. I will tell you, when I first became a hairdresser, if there was one product that just would not stay on the shelf, that was it. And I think it's because everyone was into like these straight fringes and then big hair behind it. And you can see it really, like, if we're just being honest about it, you get a little bit of teasing in there and it's going to get wild. But we don't have to go that crazy. I do like how it expands. You can use it to isolate texture, create a little intentional bed head. If I had a guest in my chair who had like wavy hair, and I was going to create a wavy finish on her, I would probably go in with like either this or a little bit of the undone texture hairspray, maybe some Worked Up if I didn't want it to like be really heavy, and she had finer hair. Be Worked Up for sure. Just to create a little bit of interest and movement. When you put it into we put products like this into wavy hair, it just creates this awesome like just expansion of texture. It's just really super romantic. It's fun to look at. It's fun to play with. So yeah, let's watch this hair color. I'm not going to follow along with this one. We'll watch it together and
street, like you just said. What I love about the street is the graffiti. Some people
Colin
look at it as
Caruso.
vandalism. I look at it as art. Basically, what I want to do, guys, is take the delivery system of color and change it a bit. How we're going to do that is take soft spray, add a little bit of Inkworks right to it, and we're going to kind of be able to spray the color exactly where we want to see it. Also, you're going to get that instant gratification, something that's unique you don't usually get with color. So what I'm going to do, guys, is just spray right down in through here, be able to see it right off the bat and enhance the haircut you just did.
All right, guys, let's go over Becca's formulation, which is the graffiti technique, or tagging as I like to call it. The first part of Becca's formulation, we had a little color correction going on. We used dual-purpose lightener with 20-volume cream developer, which we'll get into in a little bit. All right, guys, next we took 5 individual bottles of soft spray, and inside each bottle of soft spray, we added a different color of Inkworks. In the first bottle, we added blue. Second bottle, we added purple. Third bottle, we added hot pink.
Screenshot that
Fourth
one.
bottle, we added yellow. And fifth bottle, we added green.
You can sub that
Of course,
Inkworks
those are
out these days
interchangeable,
if you can't
intermixable.
find
You
Inkworks
guys could add
or
any other color
colorways.
combination that you guys want to come up with. That's what I love about it. Really kind of custom, creative freedom. All right, guys.
I'm going to say it again because why talk when someone else is talking? Sorry, Colin, that was rude. I will try not to do it again. Anyway, Inkworks sometimes a little harder to find. We recently came out with another line for a direct dye called Colorways. It's a lot of fun. You can do a similar thing with that. I'm not personally experienced in using it in that way, so buyer beware. Please experiment at your own leisure and have fun.
So we're going to go ahead and section out the top, just a little bit of a half circle sections that we're going to swing into points and just create a little bit of protection over top. This is what I like to do with is an interior color again, letting a little bit of the top layer overlay it. So it kind of sneaks and peeks through. One of the most common questions I get from this technique, guys, is how much Inkworks do we add to soft spray? Basically, that's a customization thing. What I like to do is put a little bit of Inkworks in, spray it on a white towel just to see how it looks. The more Inkworks I put in, the deeper the tone is going to be. So, of course, depending on natural level, the level that you're working on, will definitely depend on how much Inkworks you can have. What we're doing now is we're doing a quick blow dry on this, and what's great about it is that the hairspray will actually harden just a little bit. And as soon as you guys know and feel that it's a little bit harder, you're able to kind of comb through it. It's kind of set in place, and that's what we're doing right here. As I told you guys before, Becca came to us with a little bit of a chlorine situation, which happens to us all the time, and how we dealt with it was shampoo 3, dual purpose 20 volume, and that gave us this clean palette that we're able to work on to do the technique with.
Did a really interesting haircut on Becca, and again taking that inspiration from Paul Mitchell, the man himself, And taking that circular section that we've done in the crown here and based the entire haircut off that, what I really enjoyed though was actually getting to work with Colin on this and really seeing what he could actually take my haircut and make it, you know, into a three-dimensional object. So, what did you do, mate?
Again, guys, we just took a little bit of Soft Spray and Inkworks and married those two products together, basically changing the delivery system of hair color. What we're able to do kind of just point it out, shoot it out exactly where you want it, then hit it up with the blow dryer and comb it right through. So it's kind of instant gratification you don't normally get with a lot of hair color techniques that we do. So just a fun way, definitely inspired by New York City, inspired by spray painting. Love the way it worked out for us.
It's cool, man. Very cool.
Dude. What a fun time, man. I really appreciate if you were hanging out with us while we were doing this. Becca, the model, loved her hair. Seeing DJ do something like this, super nostalgic. Colin Caruso, you looked like a baby. Love to see some more stuff like this. These guys were the ones who were really pioneers at the moment, and they still really are. So if you want to see more of what they're up to, DJ Muldoon, you can find what he's up to at thefactoryhair.com. You can also find him, Daniel Joseph Muldoon, on pretty much every social. He's one of the most sought after hair cutters in the industry. He's definitely a person you want to pay attention to, want to see what's going on with him. Colin Caruso is one of our artistic directors of John Paul Mitchell Systems. He's a master with hair color and an inspiration to work with. Super down-to-earth guy. Out in New Jersey, has a salon in Hoboken called Salon Carew. They're doing some awesome work out there, and hope to see you guys again in a future stream. I think I might try to start doing this on like either a monthly or weekly basis. I had a lot of fun, and I hope that this had something either interesting or educational or inspirational for you, and that if you come across this later, because I'm just going to leave it on YouTube. Please leave a comment, subscribe, like, follow, all those things. On social media, I'm MATBR0WN, so we'll catch you in the next one. Peace.